As you are aware, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is here on a two-day visit. He'll be leaving later today evening to give a briefing to us about what the visit has been about. And I know all of you have been asking questions about outcomes, etc. We have great privilege to have Foreign Secretary of India, Sheikh Shringla, with us here today. We also have with us High Commissioner of India to Bangladesh, His Excellency Vikram Doraiswamy, as well as on my left, we have Joint Secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs looking after Bangladesh and Myanmar relations, Mrs. Smita Panis. We will request Foreign Secretary to make an opening statement. After that, we will take some questions. There is a paucity of time, I'm afraid, because the flight, we have to leave on the flight today. We'll try to take a few questions, as many as we can, but please understand if we cannot. We'll have some ground rules. As soon as I'll go over that as soon as Foreign Secretary completes his opening statement. Sir.
Namaskar and good evening, and it's very good to see all of our friends from the media, both from Bangladesh and India. The Prime Minister is just concluding what has been a very productive, very important state visit to Bangladesh. This is on the occasion what the Prime Minister referred to as the Triveni, the establishment of diplomatic relations between India and Bangladesh, the 50th anniversary of the Bangladesh Liberation War, and of course Mujib Barsho, the 100th birth anniversary of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. The Prime Minister's two-day program was substantive, historically symbolic, and very special. And it included many diverse elements. I will brief you on the outline of the visit and its significance before we take questions. So on the program, very briefly, the Prime Minister, as you know, was welcomed on arrival at Hazrat Al Shah Jalal Airport, International Airport by Prime Minister Sheikh Haseena. He was awarded a ceremonial state welcome. He then visited the National Martyrs Memorial at Savar, where he was received by the Liberation War Affairs Minister, Mr. A.K.M. Muzammal Haq, who, as you know, is the senior most minister in the cabinet of Bangladesh and also a valiant freedom fighter. In keeping with the political and social diversity of Bangladesh, the Prime Minister interacted with community leaders, members of the 14-party alliance, opposition party, youth icons, and valiant Mukti Joddhas. The Foreign Minister of Bangladesh, Dr. A.K. Abdul Momen, called on the Prime Minister later during the day. The Prime Minister attended the National Day celebration of Bangladesh as the guest of honor. This was a profound recognition of India's role in the Liberation War and also of the special ties we share with Bangladesh. During his speech, the Prime Minister paid respect to the father of the nation of Bangladesh and countless Bangladeshis and Indians who had laid down their lives in the liberation struggle. There was a lot of emphasis on the fact that we are both young nations, we have young populations. In that context, there was a lot of focus on how we can cooperate on youth-related affairs. It is in this context that the Prime Minister announced a grant of 1,000 Suvarna Jayanti scholarships for youth to study in India. He also invited 50 young entrepreneurs from Bangladesh to visit India and present their ideas to venture capitalists. Prime Minister Sheikh Haseena, in her speech at the National Day, and of course the speech was telecast live so you would know, but just to recap, recalled the role of the people and government of India in the evolution process of Bangladesh. And I quote her, "Self-sacrifice, support and cooperation of the people of India during the Liberation War will never be forgotten," unquote. She lauded the neighbourhood first policy of Prime Minister Modi and said that India sending COVID vaccines to its neighbours was a reflection of that policy. Bangabandhu's daughter, Sheikh Rehana, and Prime Minister Sheikh Haseena received the Gandhi Peace Prize, which was conferred posthumously on Sheikh Mujibur Rahman by the Prime Minister of India. As a mark of admiration that India has for Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the renowned Hindustani classical vocalist Pandit Ajoy Chakraborty created a special rag dedicated to Bangabandhu, Rag Maitri, at the National Day event. Later, both the Prime Ministers inaugurated the Bangladesh leg of the Bangabandhu Bapu digital exhibition. Apart from displaying uniquely researched historic photographs and commonalities in the lives of these great leaders, this exhibition also showcases perhaps the only photo that has both Bangabandhu and Bapu in one frame. We plan to take this exhibition to many countries, and again, this was discussed in the last meeting that the Prime Minister and both the Prime Ministers had just a short while ago, and we decided that both countries would jointly also take it to the United Nations as part of our shared commitment to world peace and against oppression. Thereafter, Prime Minister Sheikh Haseena hosted a banquet in honor of Prime Minister Modi. This morning, Prime Minister Modi visited Shatkhira and offered prayers at the Jashoreshwari Kali temple, one of the 51 Shakti Peeths in the Puranic tradition. During his visit, he also announced a grant for the construction of a cyclone shelter cum community center in Shatkhira. It's a cyclone shelter cum community center because when it is not used as a cyclone shelter, which we hope will be very rare, it will be used as a community center for the benefit of those communities that are there. This is, of course, a cyclone-prone area of Bangladesh. His next visit of the Prime Minister was to the Bangabandhu Mausoleum complex in Tungipada, where he was received by Prime Minister Sheikh Haseena and Sheikh Rehana. And again, this was conveyed in the meeting where we just came out of, where I think Prime Minister Sheikh Haseena said that Prime Minister Modi was the first head of government to pay his respects to Bangabandhu at his mausoleum in Tungipada. In other words, the first foreign high dignitary to visit Tungipada in person. In Orakhandi, which the Prime Minister visited thereafter, he met representatives of the Matua community. During his last visit, I think you would recall in 2015, the Prime Minister had expressed interest to visit Thakurbadi of this community, and he was therefore happy that he could do it this time. The Prime Minister announced plans to support upgradation of a middle school for girls and the construction of a primary school in the Orakhandi area in cooperation with the local government authorities. Now, with regard to the bilateral discussions, this evening and just before we have come here, we have held extensive restricted format discussions and delegation level talks. This allowed the two Prime Ministers to take stock of progress in various areas, different diverse areas in which we cooperate. This included some discussions on how we could preserve the legacy and spirit of 1971, commerce and connectivity, cooperation in water resources, security, defense, power and energy, and new areas like artificial intelligence, environment, societal applications of nuclear energy, etc. Lots of different areas, but also new areas, which is very important in our what our Prime Minister called Nei Urja, Nei Gati, new energy, new path. Significant decisions were also taken during this special year, like the establishment of the Bangabandhu Chair in Delhi University, renaming the Bangladesh segment of the road Shwadhinata Shadak, the road in which the senior leadership of Bangladesh travelled to take the oath at Mujibnagar during the liberation struggle in 1971. It's a very historic, famous event which both our countries share very, very intimately. The Prime Minister also proposed that there should be that India and Bangladesh should organize a business exhibition which he referred to as the Best of India, Best of Bangladesh during this very special year. So we see a lot of emphasis again on youth, on business, on connectivity, and of course on the spirit of 1971. which is always there. Both Prime Ministers jointly unveiled the stamps that were respectively issued by the postal departments of our countries on this, to mark this momentous occasion. They decided to celebrate the 6th of December, the day on which India formally recognized Bangladesh as Maitri Divas. The Prime Minister thanked Prime Minister Sheikh Haseena for erecting a war memorial in Bangladesh in Ashuganj, Brahmanbadia district, in recognition of the contribution of Indian soldiers who were martyred during the liberation war of Bangladesh. Both Prime Ministers also laid a foundation stone for Bangladesh's proposal to construct a memorial in their honor, the memorial that I referred to for Indian soldiers. A decision was also taken to celebrate our ties jointly in 19 countries, 19 countries identified by the two sides. And this is our desire, this is a reflection of our desire to sustain the legacy of 1971. In terms of the inauguration of different projects, as we know, from time to time the two Prime Ministers have been inaugurating a number of projects, including last December when there was a virtual summit. It also illustrates the level of our cooperation and the successful evolution of the development partnership between our two countries. In this context, the Prime Ministers laid the foundation stone for 5 packages of the Rupur power evacuation project, which is an important component of the line of credit, the third line of credit that India has extended to Bangladesh. There are a total of 8 packages, and this 5 packages have been now sort of for which foundation stone has been laid. And this transmission line costs over $1 billion. This is a very important component of the LOC, as I mentioned. The two Prime Ministers also inaugurated 3 border huts on the borders between our two countries, and of course new facilities at the Rabindra Bhavan at Kutibadi with Indian grant assistance. To further strengthen people-to-people connectivity, the two sides have also agreed to start a new passenger train service which is called Mitali Express between New Jalpaiguri and Dhaka, starting from Dhaka cantonment, on the recently restored Chilahati Haldibadi rail link. As you know, in December the two Prime Ministers inaugurated this 5th of the 6 rail links that existed prior to 1965. It's a very important rail link that connects North Bangladesh with North Bengal in the state of West Bengal. And starting this passenger service really is a recreation of what used to happen before 1965. Earlier, the train will commence operation once normal train services resume between the two countries. As you know, there is a suspension now because of COVID. Earlier this month, both Prime Ministers had jointly inaugurated the Maitri Setu, the road bridge connecting Tripura with Bangladesh on the Feni River. Again, very, very important point of connectivity between our two countries. A number of agreements and memorandums of understanding were also signed during the visit. These are in the areas of disaster management, trade remedial measures, 2 development partnership projects, and between the National Cadet Corps of our two countries. The entire list of different agreements signed and different deliverables in great detail will be given to you shortly. Health sector has been very important between our two countries. As our two countries combat COVID, as we work together and cooperate together in fighting the challenge of COVID, health cooperation has assumed a great importance. And to reinforce this cooperation, India announced the gifting of 109 life support ambulances to support Bangladesh's plans to strengthen its medical emergency response systems. So this was formally, the handing over was done symbolically by Prime Minister. Prime Minister Modi also, yes, as I said, handed over the key of the first ambulance to Prime Minister Sheikh Haseena at the function just before this. Both Prime Ministers were also happy to note that India and Bangladesh have been able to move forward with an efficient and effective policy responses to contain the spread of the pandemic. And of course, in the spirit of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which is the world is one family, India had launched its vaccine Maitri program. Prime Minister Modi recalled his earlier assurance to Prime Minister Sheikh Haseena that Bangladesh would continue to get high priority in this regard. Prime Minister Haseena, Sheikh Haseena thanked the Prime Minister for providing 102 million doses or 1 crore 2 lakh doses of vaccines, of which 32 lakhs have been delivered as gifts under grants in aid and the rest as commercial. Bangladesh is the largest recipient of Made in India vaccines, as you're aware, and this again illustrates our priority that we attach to Bangladesh as our closest neighbor, and of course is in consonance with our neighbourhood first policy that we are implementing. And of course, this figure of 1.02 crores includes the 12 lakh doses or 1.2 million doses that the Prime Minister gifted personally, on arrival in Bangladesh from India's own supplies. After the meeting with the Prime Minister, with Prime Minister Sheikh Haseena, the Prime Minister also called on His Excellency Mr. Abdul Hamid, President of the People's Republic of Bangladesh. They had a very cordial conversation. The Prime Minister thanked him for his consistent support and guidance in the furtherance of India-Bangladesh ties. So, as you can see, it's been an extensive program. It was the Prime Minister's first visit overseas since the outbreak of the COVID pandemic. I think he has not travelled for a year and a half outside India, and this is reflective of the highest importance we attach to Bangladesh in accordance with our neighbourhood first and act these policies. In terms of development cooperation, a quick snapshot I want to give you. Prime Minister Modi congratulated Bangladesh on its upcoming graduation from LDC status. He affirmed that a strong, stable, prosperous Bangladesh is a role model for the entire South Asian region. India is committed to continuing its support to Bangladesh at every step of the way ahead, be it in infrastructure development or capacity building, or in the areas of health, capacity building or power generation. Our lines of credit have not only helped in infrastructure development and connectivity, but also in green projects, and there are a number of projects that have been undertaken in this area. There are also projects in new and emerging areas, such as high-tech parks in 12 districts, solid waste management, etc., that are being implemented. And we are expanding our cooperation in new areas, like I said, other areas like civil nuclear cooperation, and we are keen to work together in the area of space. Prime Minister Modi was to visit Bangladesh last year at the start of Mujib Barsho. As you are aware, this could not happen due to the COVID pandemic. He is happy that he could fulfill his promise to visit Bangladesh this year. Since the Prime Minister's last visit to Bangladesh in 2015, the India-Bangladesh relationship has grown stronger and more multifaceted. Today, our ties transcend even a strategic partnership. That we could attain progress in several areas even while the COVID pandemic was raging is a testimony to our shared desire to move forward for the good of both our peoples. In closing, the visit of the Prime Minister was historic given the commemorative aspects of the Triveni, the three epochal events. It was rich in substance as both sides held comprehensive discussions in all areas of cooperation and deeply meaningful in historic symbolism. Both Prime Ministers also had multiple occasions to interact. It was also an opportunity for the Prime Minister to explore the diversity and beauty of the land of Bangladesh, something that he's been wanting to do and something that he spoke about at length after his travels today. We are told that, again, during the talks, it was conveyed to us by the Bangladesh delegation that no head of state or government had actually visited areas outside Dhaka. The Prime Minister today visited 3 different locations in Bangladesh, including locations that were relatively rural and remote from that perspective. In short, this visit is a true reflection of our uniquely close and friendly ties and has further consolidated the chapter of our Shonali Adhyay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the comprehensive briefing on the visit of the Prime Minister. Before beginning questions, since some of I see many faces of Bangladesh friends, we have basic ground rules. 1 question per person. If you have a related question, you can intervene then. Please introduce yourself and the organizations that you belong to before you ask the question. And we may not be able to accommodate all the questions given that it is already close to 8 o'clock. So let me, questions. I see you here, gentlemen. Yeah, please, go ahead.
सर प्रणय पाठा एबीपी न्यूज से मेरा सवाल इस चीज को लेकर है कि बांग्लादेश के साथ जो न्यूक्लियर पावर रूपनगर पावर प्लांट के इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डेवलपमेंट में भारत के सहयोग पर समझौता हुआ है, उसमें भारत की भूमिका क्या होगी और स्पेस को लेकर जैसे आपने इंगित किया, क्या स्पेस के क्षेत्र में किसी नए प्रस्ताव पर बात हुई है?
हमारे जो लाइन ऑफ क्रेडिट है, थर्ड लाइन ऑफ क्रेडिट, उसमें से एक काफ़ी बड़ा हिस्सा, महत्वपूर्ण हिस्सा सिविल न्यूक्लियर कोऑपरेशन की दिशा में जाएगी। और जो आपने कहा रूपुर न्यूक्लियर पावर प्लांट के जो ट्रांसमिशन लाइंस हैं, ये जब पावर प्लांट बनेगी तो इवैक्यूएशन ऑफ पावर के लिए ट्रांसमिशन लाइन बनेगी, वो भारतीय कंपनीज करेंगे लाइन ऑफ क्रेडिट के दौरान से। और ये जो ट्रांसमिशन लाइंस होंगे इनका टोटल $1 के से ज़्यादा होगा। और स्पेस में जो प्रश्न आपने पूछा, स्पेस में हमारा कोऑपरेशन भी, वैसे आपने देखा है कि साउथ एशियन सैटेलाइट भी, उसका कवरेज भी बांग्लादेश में, उसके कोऑपरेशन जो टेलीमेडिसिन, टेली एजुकेशन में चल रही है, उसके बावजूद भी हम दूसरे मतलब एरियाज ऑफ कोऑपरेशन के बारे में अभी हमारी चर्चा चल रही है। तो उसमें हम देखेंगे कि क्या और हम कर सकते हैं। दोनों साइड्स के काफ़ी इंटरेस्ट हैं कि स्पेस पे हमारे जो कोऑपरेशन है वो बढ़ाया जाए, तो उसमें हम आपको आगे जाके आगे बढ़ने के बाद बताएंगे।
Gentleman over there.
My name is Vardhan from the Finance Director. My question is in regard
One
to
second.
connectivity.
Microphone, please.
My question is in regard to connectivity, because our Prime Minister told us a few days back that our Prime Minister was supposed to request India to let use its territory for the connectivity between Bhutan, Nepal and Bangladesh. So what is your take in this regard? Thank you.
Well, there is already very active cooperation and collaboration between India, Nepal, Bhutan and Bangladesh under the BBIN, let's say, group. Sometimes we're doing it in a triangular way, India, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and sometimes India, Nepal and Bangladesh, but India and Bangladesh are normally always there in this cooperation. We spoke about a motor vehicles agreement that is, fairly in an advanced stage. We want to take it further. And of course, we are also facilitating, as you know, the exports of Bangladeshi exports to both these countries through India. We already have some established transit routes. There are proposals for other routes which we are examining. So this is an active area of ongoing discussion, and I think and ongoing cooperation, and it will only increase in time to come. There is great potential for sub-regional cooperation in different ways, and I think this is an area where we will see a fair amount of movement, even greater movement than what we already have.
Thank you, sir. Lady here. Hold on, the lady there, please. I'll come to you. You didn't raise your hand.
Sir, was there any conversation around the CISA treaty?
Yeah, please.
This is June Bari from Capital Television. Just a minute ago, our Foreign Minister said, our Prime Minister repeatedly and very strongly said about the TISA treaty to your minister. And what is the position and what was the answer? And we know that there is no treaty or agreement in this issue, but there are some informal issues that have been discussed between the two Prime Ministers. We just want to note that also.
You see, between our two close countries and two close sides, we have always had conversations on all issues. And of course, you're right that the TISA issue was discussed, and Prime Minister Sheikh Haseena did refer to the TISA issue. Prime Minister Modi reiterated India's sincere and continued efforts to conclude this agreement in consultation with the relevant stakeholders. The Indian side also requested for early finalization of the draft of the interim agreement for sharing of river waters of the Feni River. pending with the Bangladesh side, which had been agreed by both sides in 2011. And so river waters cooperation is something that will continue. We have extensive cooperation. Let me put it in perspective. Today our two countries cooperate extensively on the 56 rivers that flow between our countries. The cooperation is in areas that are very diverse, for use of water, for drinking, for irrigation, but also pollution control, how we can work together on flood control, embankments, pollution control. There are a lot of areas. In fact, Bangladesh side also offered some capacity building in areas that they have strengths in, like embankment construction, etc. So river waters cooperation is important. We just had a meeting of the water resources secretaries of our two countries in New Delhi under the auspices of the Joint Rivers Commission. It was an excellent meeting that went into all of these things. So we are meeting regularly. We are talking about all these issues that are important, including the Teesta issue that you mentioned.
Gentleman over there, 1 second. Your last question.
Hi, this is Vardhan. I represent Dr. Thank you for attending the history event. One is the birth centenary of Father of the Nation, the 50th anniversary of our independence, as well as 50 years of diplomatic relations. So my precise question is that when the Indian Prime Minister, in his first visit after the pandemic, he visited Bangladesh and joined us the historic celebration. And also today, I visited one of the very famous place of the Mothur community in Gorakhandi. The political analysts both in the West Bengal and Bangladesh, the section of political analysts argues that Indian Prime Minister embarked on the visit on a twin mission. One is the historic events, bilateral relation, as well as the coincidence of the West Bengal election. So what is your take on this particular issue of the election in West Bengal and his visit to Gorakhandi? Thank you.
Well, Rahid, I mentioned a short while ago that the Prime Minister had actually expressed a desire to visit Thakurbadi in Orakhandi, as well as the Shatkira Kali Jeshoreshwari temple when he came in 2015. This has always been a desire of his to visit these two places. In fact, he talked also about visiting Kuttibadi in Shiraida. He talked about visiting other areas. Now, he was very happy that at least two of the places that he wanted to visit could materialize during this particular visit. He could not go to Kuttibadi, but as you saw that he and Prime Minister Sheikh Haseena actually inaugurated the completed renovation of that very important heritage area and monument that both our countries treasure. So what I'm trying to say is that this is something that was part of the plan for a long time. And is something that I think has to be seen in the context of our shared history, shared spiritual links, shared cultural links, and something that I think countries like ours will always. I remember when in 2012 we had all gone to Tripura when Prime Minister Sheikh Haseena visited Tripura, and it was the recreation in many senses of the spirit of 1971 when Tripura had harbored so many people, and when Prime Minister Sheikh Haseena went to the Maidan, the parade grounds there, you could not see the end of it. There were so many people that you could not see the end of it. Why I'm mentioning this is that I'm trying to bring you the spirit of what our two countries represent. We are not countries that just go to capitals, meet each other and go back, and have meetings in drawing rooms and go back. We are countries that have so much of a shared history, so much of shared culture, legacy, that we visit each other's countries to different parts of the country. We just met the Honorable President and he recalled that he had visited the Garo Hills and the Tura Hills, and I went with him on that visit. And I'm trying to tell you that this captures the essence. So we should not look at these things in the context, in narrow context. I think it has to be seen in the larger context that our two countries stand for and represent.
One second. Gentleman here. We'll come to you. I have noted you. No, here. Gentleman, I'm sorry, I know you.
Manish Chand, India Rights Network. Foreign Secretary, there's a lot of focus on connectivity projects and connectivity. What about larger regional connectivity, trans-regional connectivity? For example, Bangladesh has signed on to BRI. We have our own models of connectivity. Also, in this connection, what about cooperation in SAARC, BIMSTEC? About cooperation in regional fora for promoting connectivity and solidarity?
Well, the two prime ministers spoke about the extensive cooperation that we had in regional organizations, and they referred to, in particular, BIMSTEC, to IORA, to SARC, to a number of other organizations that we are both members of. The BBIN, of course, is part of that. And, essentially, what we are coming down to is that we have the idea of expanding connectivity. We are now talking about connectivity that links our two countries, but we are also talking about connectivity that is beyond our two countries. There was a reference to the trilateral highway between India, Myanmar and Thailand, for example. There was a reference to other areas of connectivity beyond our two countries. Now, all this will happen in good time. But what is important is that we have to focus on ensuring that at least between our two countries we make up for 35, 40 years of lost time and accelerate the pace of our development in terms of infrastructure and connectivity projects that link our two economies, link our two peoples.
Thanks. Sorry, gentleman here.
I'm Rashid from Shamatha. Thank you for coming to Bangladesh. See you again. I'd like to ask a question about the people-to-people connection. While you are in the High Commission here, this process made easier for the Bangladeshi people. And as we know, any kind of discussion held today about the basically democracy treatment visa, we know that a lot of Bangladeshi people frequently goes to India for treatment, and as we know, so far this kind of discussion will be held. So is it in today's meeting?
Well, Rashid Bhai, you know that one of the greatest areas of success that we've had has been in facilitating easier travel between our two countries. The number of visas that we have issued per year has gone up from 5 lakhs a year to 16 lakhs a year, if I'm not mistaken. Today, I think, the High Commissioner attaches great interest to ensuring that visas for medical purposes, for business purposes, except for tourism, we are giving other forms of visas. Tourism is not there because of the COVID situation. Once it gets better, that will also be resumed. We've had travel bubbles created specifically so that there are flights on a regular basis between Indian cities and Bangladeshi cities, particularly Dhaka. And we give a lot of emphasis to ensure that those who are applying for medical visas, not only them, but their attendants also get visas. There was some discussion with the different groups because, the Prime Minister has met extensive number of groups. In all the places he's travelled, he's met groups. He met a number of groups in Dhaka. Some of them had some ideas. All that was discussed, and this is part of our ongoing, cooperation and progress that we will make in all of these areas.
Gentleman here.
Excellency, my name is Nishu. I represent Donatry. My question is about what was the key message of Prime Minister Narendra Modi during this visit, and what message you got from Bangladesh government?
Sorry? There's a related question? Gentlemen, please wait, ma'am.
Well, I think, the Prime Minister said a very interesting phrase. He said, Nayi Urja, Nayi Gati. New energy, new pathways. What he's talking about is that we need to not only continue the momentum, we need to accelerate the momentum. And both Prime Ministers agreed that in today's context, we are meeting on a very, very happy, very historic, very momentous occasion. Our two countries have shared, which very few two countries together can share. What can we do further? How can we look at not just a few years from now, but a plan for 2030, for example? All of this was part of the discussions that we had, that we plan for the future. The Prime Minister Sheikh Haseena spoke about planning for the next 50 years, that we'll cooperate together. Let us look at 50 years. What I'm trying to say is that the discussions has been on, realizing that not only have we made tremendous progress, but that we can make much more progress. So we need a new energy for that, we need new pathways, and that is, I would say, the sense of what the Prime Minister had to say. Of course, he said a lot more, but just to summarize the general spirit of what he mentioned.
Gentlemen here. Then
Thank you. This is Haseena, I work with Bangladesh Post newspaper. You just said that I will look at next 50 years. So at this point of time, during the parliament, I understand that both leaders, they share their vision. So what is the vision for the next 20 years?
Well, you will make me a visionary from that point of view, Haseena. But I think the vision is already there. Both the prime ministers don't look at the relationship as something that is for the present. They're looking at it what is it for the future generation. So if you see a lot of the areas of cooperation that I spoke about, for example, inviting 50 entrepreneurs of Bangladesh to look at the venture capital, to tap the venture capital potential in India, look at starting businesses in new and critical technologies, for example, looking at 1,000 Suvarna Jayanti scholarships that would enable young people and energize them to go and study in areas that they are interested in the educational fields in India. We are looking at collaborations in areas like nuclear energy and space, but we also spoke about artificial intelligence, big data. We spoke about new internet age. We spoke about technology 4.0. The Prime Minister Modi mentioned these areas as areas where young people, the youth of our countries, the future of our countries. You're talking about what can we see 20, 30 years. We have to invest in the future. If you see the youth delegation that goes from Bangladesh, that is part of, and I think this is something that is important. I mean, this is tapping the potential of our young people is where the two prime ministers see the future, 20 years from today.
Thanks. Lady here. Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Shringla. I work for DBC News. Have any discussed between two leaders about Rohingya issue? Now India is a new member of Security Council.
Yes, I mean, I think this is a very important issue. Has to be discussed. As you know, India is the only country that has a common border with both Bangladesh and Myanmar. So this is an issue that does come up and should come up. I think there was an understanding between both sides that Bangladesh had done a lot to provide shelter and refuge to over 1 million displaced persons from the Rakhine state in Myanmar. That in your endeavor, in your efforts, we have provided 5 tranches of humanitarian assistance. We will continue to work with you in order to elevate your, let's say, responsibilities in that regard. We have also worked in Myanmar under the Rakhine State Development Program to create infrastructure that would facilitate the safe, speedy and sustainable return of these displaced persons back to their homes. We have created 250 houses already in areas which are already, where they live. I'm told that, even among the 109 ambulances that we've just gifted, a few of them are earmarked for the camps in which these displaced persons are housed. There was also, I think, a sense that India has been happy to facilitate any forward movement in the repatriation of displaced persons back to their homes in the Rakhine state. This is something that we have discussed with both Myanmar and Bangladesh. This is something that we have worked with both sides in trying to facilitate. We have always been happy to assist in a manner that is constructive, that secures the goal of, as I said, a safe, speedy and sustainable return. And this is something we will continue to do in working with both sides. So this was certainly discussed, this was raised, discussed, and I think this is something that both our countries will continue to ascribe great importance to in the coming months.
Gentlemen here.
This is Excellency, I am Masum, I work for the Daily Star. My question is that you have already talked about the Rohingya repatriation issues. Bangladesh government has constructed a beautiful place for relocation around 1 lakh Rohingyas in Bhasanchar. So, what is the stance of India and about Bhasanchar, and did it was discussed in the 2 regions?
No, I must say it was not discussed. And of course, I mean, how what plans you have and how you take care of this. Our role is a supportive role. We are happy to work with you. We are happy to cooperate and happy to facilitate any of your actions that are designed to not only take care of such a large number of displaced persons, but also to see how they can be ultimately find their way as soon as possible back to their original homes.
So given the paucity of time, we'll just take one or two more questions. Gentleman there and this one.
This is Abhishek Kapoor from Republic TV. My question is, was the security situation discussed last month? NIA booked some Jamaat Mujahideen Bangladesh operatives as far as Bengaluru, and last week we saw a court in Bangladesh convicting some boys of bomb attack on Prime Minister Sheikh Haseena. Was the security situation discussed?
Well, the security, defense and security issues were discussed. It was one of the items that were discussed. I think both sides felt that we had an excellent cooperation in these areas, that we had, tremendous exchanges in all of these areas. You know that we've just had a meeting of the Home Secretaries. So details of the type that you're asking are actually discussed at the Home Secretary level, at the BGP, BSF level, at the different institutional levels of cooperation that we had. At the higher level, the highest levels, we only emphasized how important that cooperation was and how successful it was going. And if I can slightly go back to the same question that you asked, I think that you asked about the UN Security Council. Yes, and that's correct, that we are members of the Security Council. We are trying to play a constructive role in getting balanced outcomes in the Council in a manner that is able to reflect as much as possible the ethos that we see as a close neighbor of both Myanmar and Bangladesh.
So the final question I think get here.
Hi, Sam Siddhant from WION. My question is, India and Bangladesh are going to celebrate 50 years of diplomatic relationships in 19 countries. Are these countries in South Asia? And my second question is, how do you see Bangladesh as an economic miracle?
One question, please. Only one. So just take the first one or the second one, whichever you choose, sir. One.
Well, I'll try and give you short answers to both.
That's okay.
As far as an economic miracle concerned, I think the Prime Minister emphasized that Bangladesh's success in graduating out of the LDC status, success economically in socio-economic terms, is one that was a paradigm for the whole of South Asia. It was a great, I would say, there's a great deal of appreciation of what has been achieved. And I think as Bangladesh, we believe in a strong, stable, secure and prosperous Bangladesh. And as Bangladesh grows economically, I think we can only rejoice in that, because we will also benefit. Whatever happens to you happens to us. Whatever happens to us also happens to you. So that there is a mutuality in this.
Other countries, which are the list of countries?
There are, of course, as we mentioned, 19 countries. I know that the number sounds a little arbitrary, but there are countries from all over the world, from Europe, Southeast Asia, America, Africa. There are continents all over the world that are covered in this endeavor. I mean, our idea is not to establish, this in some countries. Our idea is to go and spread this message of, Prime Minister felt that Bangabandhu's message and his contribution and the contribution of his family has not been amply recognized and amply reflected in the international domain. And both India and Bangladesh could work to amplify that message of these two great leaders of our two countries, and that's the basic idea, and that's how we intend to take it to many countries all over the world.
Thank you very much, sir, for sparing so much time. That brings us to the conclusion of this press conference. Thank you for your presence, ladies and gentlemen. Good night.
WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.